So, the four highest forms of coonery in the black community, coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Conversation, Logic, and Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So we know that the black community is not in the best of shape. You know, there's more opportunity in America than ever before for black people. Matter of fact, for all people. There's never been a time when there was so much opportunity in this country. But it seems, in spite of all of that opportunity, black people today are bigger victims than black people who lived it back in the day, and people who actually lived through all the things that they're talking about today that they never seen. You know, the black people who lived through real oppression, although they keep trying to make this nonsense narrative that black folks are still being oppressed, that's absolute BS. But they always like to say, you know, the problems we have today are tied to all of these problems, and that's why all these problems in the past, slavery, segregation, Jim Crow, this is why they keep bringing them up. But the problem is that the real issues in the black community, as I've always said, didn't start until after the Great Society. We didn't see high crime rates, high violent crime rates, high murder rates, high rates of children and growing out in single-parent households without fathers. You know, there was a point in time when blacks had some of the highest marriage rates. Now we have the lowest. All of this stuff happening after the Great Society, so it has nothing to do with no damn oppression. Now, of course, the problem is just victimhood. And you have too many people in America who profit off of victimhood, who keep perpetuating victimhood. Now, black conservatives are often always called the ones who are coon Uncle Toms and all the other stuff, because we don't follow the mainstream black narrative. Like, as black people, we're just giant monolith. We this hive mind. Any black person who strays from that and don't play it to the victimhood will be called a coon. But I say the real coons are the ones who promote the victimhood, and that's what I'm going to get into. So I have my list of the 4 highest forms of coonery in the black community. Now we're going to start with number 4. The 4th biggest coons in the black community are drug dealers. You have to be a coon to sell poisons into your own community like that. Now, I would say this, you know, I would like to say that when it comes down to drugs, even though people have to take their own personal responsibility, they have to take their own free will to go out there and buy drugs and use drugs. So I'm not saying that most of the problems still don't fall on the people, because if you don't mess around with drugs, if you're not selling drugs, you're not participating in drugs, there will be no need to sell drugs because there will be no money into it. So I'm not taking responsibility of the people, but still, as a drug dealer, how can you put these poisons in your community? And what's worse, some of these people be some of the biggest pro-blacks out here, out there fist in the air, straight up fist in the air pro-black, and they'll be around here selling poisons to their community. You can't be pro-black if you're selling drugs to black. That's absolutely stupid. And what's worse, hell, their own family can get caught up in using drugs and become addicted to drugs because y'all peddling that poison in your community. That is coonery. If you want to talk about black conservatives, black conservatives aren't the coons. That is coonery, selling that poison toxins to your damn community. And then they always try to say, well, that's all they know. They don't know nothing else. Well, again, with all this opportunity we have in this country, they don't know nothing else. Once again, this is a black community problem. And the reason why they don't know nothing else, because we waste our time on a whole lot of BS. That's not the problem, it's to focus on the problem. Anyway, so let's go to number 3 on the list. And these are the black people with the ghetto mentalities. Y'all know I talk about the ghetto mentality all the time. And basically the ghetto mentality is a childlike mentality that puts, a lot of emphasis on quick gratification, living for today. with very little emphasis whatsoever on delaying gratification so that you can have better in the future. And honestly, that's the way you can sum up the ghetto mentality. And this is so prevalent in the ghettos and the hoods. That's why I call it a ghetto mentality. Again, this is another mentality that rose up out of the Great Society because of the Great Society and the devastation that the Great Society had to the black community. And these are the people out here who are doing all of the things that make black people look bad, committing the high crime rates, either having babies out of wedlock, and now we have broken homes. These are the people who are doing all these things. Now, what I find amazing and funny is that them doing these things to make black community look bad, the race hustlers and all these blacks ain't got a problem with that. But if you're a black person, black conservative, and you speak on it, somehow you're wrong. You're airing out our dirty laundry. But people can't see the dirty laundry, what black people doing, what these people with the ghetto mentalities are doing. You mean to tell me that the only way that people can see outside America can see this, outside the black community can see this, is only if black conservatives speak on it? No, you can see this. You can look at the stats. You can look at the news. Look at news reports, and see all the blacks that are being killed. If you really want to watch the news, because if you don't watch it, then all you ever hear are black people complain about the high-profile cases or cases in which black people are killed by police officers or white folks. But the truth of the matter is, these N-words, as I say, the people with the ghetto mentality, they're the ones who are doing all of the things in the black community that make the black community look bad. But somehow, like, we black conservatives can't highlight it and bring it up. Again, this ghetto mentality is, I would say, the biggest problem. One of the biggest problems. I would say it's more of a repercussion of other problems, and that is victimhood. It's definitely victimhood. It caused this all because of the Great Society and the mentality that black people developed after the Great Society. So black people with this ghetto mentality are ghetto-minded blacks. They are coons. No doubt about that. Now, the number 2 group of people on the list, and these are blacks that actually promote victimhood. These don't have to be ghetto-minded blacks. It could be, good, decent blacks. I know a lot of good, decent blacks out there making good income, taking care of their family, not out here in these streets, perhaps don't live in the hood or could live in the hood, being productive members of society, but they still believe in this ridiculous notion of racism and white supremacy. I know that a lot of these people, many of them in my family, and I would say that I have the ghetto side of my family, which is my mom's side, and I have the decent side of the family, which is my dad's side. The people on my mom's side of the family, if I speak to them, they'll agree with me, you're right. It's the people, the good people on my dad's side of the family, they'll argue me up and down about all this nonsense and victimhood. And you would think it would be the other way around, but it's not. So these people constantly keep promoting race. These are the people who keep crying about race and white supremacy, even, like I said, even though they wouldn't know oppression from a bag of M&Ms. They keep promoting this nonsense. And as long as we keep focusing on race, keep focusing on those quote-unquote racism in America, black folks being held back, as long as we keep crying about a past that's irrelevant, and as long as we keep perpetuating a whole bunch of fictitious notions, things that just don't even exist, only exist in black people's mind, like white supremacy. White supremacy is a figment of black people's imagination. White supremacy is nothing but black inferiority when you actually analyze and break it down, but yet black people keep pushing white supremacy because that doesn't exist. And these blacks are, again, they're the reason why there's such a problem is that if we keep focusing on the victimhood, if you have these blacks keep crying about racism and white supremacy all day, that means we don't focus on the real problem. We don't focus on trying to address the group number 3, the blacks with the ghetto mentality, who are actually doing all the bad things in the black community that makes the black community look bad in the eyes of other Americans in the world. And that's the problem with these people. Now, the number 1 group of coons in America are well-off blacks promoting victimhood. These could be the Race hustlers such as Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, all these other blacks who make money off of race. And it's understandable why they do it, because they make money off of it. But you can't tell me that you care for the black community and then you keep telling black people that they're victims. All these race hustlers, Tariq Nasheed, Dr. Omar Johnson, these clowns keep crying about racism, about everything, finding racism, you know what I'm saying, in a box of Cheerios. Racism in a PlayStation 5, if they can find racism in a PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4, hell, or Nintendo Switch, they'll be crying to high heavens, finding that one little thing that they believe is race. While at the same time, they're doing very well for themselves. That's what killed me. They'll be bragging about how rich they are, and how successful they are, and they got all these riches. Then they'll be crying about the white supremacy of the white man, and how every time you try to build something, the white man take it away. And I'm like, well, has the white man come and take your millions away yet? Now, a perfect example of this would be Dennis Sperling. Getting a huge fan of a lot of things that his message, but this dude is just a straight up race hustler. You know, brag about his success as a lawyer. He's a successful lawyer and talks about the passport rules and him going overseas into Brazil and the Dominican Republic. Right? Then you'll hear him say some ridiculous nonsense of he's in America, he's a stolen man in a stolen land. Okay, but you going to these other countries to be a passport bro, but America's so bad, but you keep coming back to it. Again, it makes no sense. And of course, he's explained why he does that, because America's where, you know, these third world countries, they may have great culture because they haven't been contaminated by feminism yet and wokeness, but they're third world status for a reason. There's a reason why he coming back to America, and this is the place to make the money, because America has a free economic system that allows people to make the money. Okay, there's a reason why these countries are third world status, but it just amazed me how you can cry about racism and white supremacy and then brag about being rich. That just doesn't make any sense. Now, I know some people will say, well, people were making money. There were people who were making money back in the days of slavery. Okay, well, if people were doing that back in the days of slavery, and you know, you had Madam C.J. Walker, became the richest, the first female millionaire. If black people were able to do that back then, what should black people be able to do today? Well, if you want to know what black people should be able to do today, well, look at black people coming from other countries, because they don't have no problem whatsoever operating in this white supremacy system. It makes no sense, but these idiots keep promoting this nonsense. But these blacks who are well off, I mean, you are well off, you became rich, or you have a high income, high six-figure income, but you're crying about racism and white supremacy. And what makes matters even worse, I guarantee you, with a lot of these blacks, a lot of them, if you actually analyze their background and study their track record, how they got to where they were, I guarantee there will be plenty of white people who helped them along the way. But they'll talk about white supremacy and racism, or while being well off, and then you made your money, but you're going to tell other black people that they're being oppressed. That's stupid. You think that you would tell black people, hey, I was able to navigate white supremacy and get here. This is how you could do it. No, white man, racism, white man. That's why people, number one, well-off blacks promoting victimhood, really, honestly, is the worst. These are the biggest coons for black people in America. And again, you can't say that there's evidence that America is a racist society, because if that were the case, only white people would be successful. And all these other people from the other races and groups who migrate here would be just as quote-unquote destitute and oppressed and poor as black people. Matter of fact, they wouldn't come here because there would be no opportunity. But yet people flock here like there's no tomorrow. Now, what I find funny is that when you actually take the four people or the four groups, most black people fall under this somewhere. The majority of black people will fall somewhere in those categories. The people, the people who are not on that list, the black conservatives, the people who are called Coons, who's supposed to be the Coons, operating, the Coonery and all this other stuff. The people who constantly are called Coons are the ones who's not on the list. That just goes to show you the leftist mentality. They always accuse you of the things that they do. That's just what the leftists do. And despite what these race hustlers are saying, you know, they may say, well, we ain't with the Democrats and all that other stuff. Birds of a feather flock together. If you act like them and you do the same things that they do, are you them? Anyway, y'all, these are the coons, the real coons in the black people, in the black community, the people who are really operating in coonery and doing the things that's hampering and harming the black community, while at the same time wanting to accuse other people of doing it. And this is why the black community will never get anywhere, because the people on the list, the 4 groups of people here is going to keep black people, well, a foundational black Americans, stuck on stupid, while all other races or groups come here and prove to them what can be done. But anyway, y'all, like I said, this is my list of the highest forms of coonery for black people in the United States of America. And as always, y'all, until next time.